I'm going to go through taking care of this part of the key and this part next. And after that, we will start to clean up some of these gray areas as well. So I might time lapse through some of it, I might not, but I'll just start at normal speed for now. And then if it's basically the same techniques, we can probably time lapse it just to keep the class efficient in terms of the length. So it'll be the same technique basically. I'm going to do it before the garbage mat. So before this is happening, I'm going to put it up with the rest of the keys. So I can grab this stuff and expand down. I always like to, this is why I like to work really vertically. Each compositor has their own preference, but I really like to expand my script and have it built in this way so it's easy to grab everything and add things as we need to. So I'll just put a dot here and another one. And we'll pull that down. And the area we're trying to key, again, it's a Luma key, so I'm going to use a keyer and bring it over and just try to get a good key for that. And most of the values, if we sample, are over 1. So I'm holding Control Shift, you can see. So I'm just going to increase this to get all that detail. Hit invert. That will help us see. So pushing it too far, we start to lose the eyelash there. So I think I'll try to keep the eyelash, and I'll just put a gamma now. So let's put our GBA and switch to gamma, just kind of pull it down. Might leave a little bit of gray there. Probably won't matter in the final comp. But if it does, we can always go and manually rotoscope and fix it. So now I'll put a roto around there and we get an alpha that looks like that. And I can leave it sort of like that because the garbage mat kind of cuts away at it anyways, I think. Maybe it doesn't. Let me check my garbage mats. Okay, so our garbage mat. Okay. Sorry, let me just double check here. Right, so I mixed this at the wrong spot. This needs to be before the garbage mat. So I need to move this down. And then I'll mix this over. So I'll bring this in, key mix A, key mix over B, and then so we get something like that. And then we can blur the alpha a little bit so we help with the edge. We might need to do a little bit of blurring on our alpha so we can extend our edge a little bit. We got to be a little bit careful here because if we blur it too much, we're going to lose detail. So I can bring it back just a bit, like so. And then what I could do is gamma down even more, but then use a roto shape. So the gamma is more on the bottom than the top. So we kind of create like a gradient for the color correction. So I'll switch it to RGBA, put the reformat, and then put it here, and then just feather it up. So the color correction won't be as intense towards the top here. And then I'll just expand the shape size a little bit. And then I'll just key it through. So I'll close all this stuff. I'm going to key my color correction, my position of the roto. It doesn't matter if it's messing up all this stuff because we're only going to mix it in on that one spot. So I'm not really too worried about how it looks on this specific layer because we're only in the key mix. We're only going to be mixing it right here. So I'm going to animate the roto of this thing. So this one I need to be a little bit more careful because I don't want to affect too much of the alpha. So I'll just sort of keep it in that area. something like this. And I think we'll still run into a little bit of problems where we need a little bit of paint or something. If we look after the garbage mat and look at the holdout, let's just see. We can compare now. So what did it have? So we're starting to get rid of some of those areas. And let's see. So this is before, this is after. There's a little bit of gray still here. We could adjust the black point. Not that much. Could push it down just a little tiny bit and then push the white point up very, very slightly. And when I say very slightly, I mean like 0.1. You really don't want to push that far. So again, that's something, if it's, because it's right on the seam, this is something we could just paint out manually if we have to. I'm not going to spend time doing it now because there's other areas to worry about that are bigger. And sometimes stuff like this isn't even visible in the final comp. So I don't waste time on stuff if you can't see it in the final picture. I'll try to get it in a relatively good spot, merge it over, do the composite, and if there's stuff that's actually appearing, then you go back and fix it. But don't waste time on things you don't see. You know, that's probably a good philosophy to stand by, especially when you're working in, if you're working on team projects, time is of the essence, basically. So I think that's good. Let me just make sure of the position. And then I'll do the last part of the head up there. All right. So let's do one more key. I'm going to label this. Let's just label this so we keep our script clean. Say SR face. SR means screen right because we're looking at the right side of the screen. And I'll expand this down even more. And break another keyer into it. And pull it over. And using this dot node, I'm going to try to key the head. So keyer. Let's try to get an alpha for his head. You might have to have a little bit of a harder key to get that off. So something like that. It's a little bit more of a rough key, but we can blur the key. So that'll be okay. Put it here. And yeah, so sometimes you have to, the only way to key stuff is, you know, you're going to lose a little bit of motion blur by keying it, and there's nothing you can do. Either you can roto that motion blur back or paint it in at the end. If it's even noticeable. If it's over a super dark frame and there's a little bit of motion blur lost, I'm probably not going to waste time trying to restore this unless it's actually noticeable, or you have somebody who's extremely picky, and you know, because this is going to be a dark shot, so you're going to have to brighten it all the way up to see hey, a little bit of motion blur is missing on the head. So it depends who you're working with. Some people like to go after really small details like that. Personally, I think it's a little bit of a waste of money on a production to be focusing on something like that when I think, you know, in general, focusing on the big picture and how it looks is more important. Small details definitely matter, but there's a level of judgment, I would say, required to say what's a small detail and what's a unnecessary trouble for the amount of time that you're spending. And I think that good supervisors, they know how to manage this expectation and not wasting money for the person paying to, you know, create this shot. So we can stencil this off. Oops. Let's just, I'll take a roto paint and I'll just stencil some of the little weird areas that are coming through. So I'll merge stencil. and we'll just go there with the paintbrush. Okay, just keep it at 1 and then just erase and go to the next frame and do the same thing. So we can just quickly go through, paint off the little things. And you see our keyer is still getting some shapes of his hair and everything, so it's doing a pretty good job. Even though it was a hard key, in terms of the shape, it was like a harder line. But we can still make it look like a softer key by just giving it a little bit of a blur or an erode. So that's working pretty well. I'm not going to keep painting it through because I don't think it's going to be affected at dot frame. So we can kind of, I don't know, shrink this down and then only use this part when his head sort of comes into the frame. We don't really want to be using that until his head gets there. So as soon as we need it, we'll start to mix it like that. Maybe just feather it a little bit. My viewer is glitching a little bit. Let's just make sure. Okay. So yeah, there we go. So it's cleaning up that area, and let's just see after the garbage mat. We might need to mix. We could mix this after the garbage mat because our garbage mat right now is cutting this off. So let's just see. I'm going to do a key mix like this. This is just a quick solution. We'll just go like this. We'll just put it before. And since it's only a few frames, I'm going to do a roto paint. And kind of like before the garbage mat, we have this. And then after the garbage mat, it cuts off a little bit too much. So I'm going to take a roto paint and then just sort of mix in the alpha that was before. Like this. So I'm just taking this alpha, we're stenciling it, but then we want to restore just a little bit what was there. So I'll take this and turn on my overlay. If Nuke wants to cooperate, it seems like my viewer is having a little bit of a glitch, so I might need to restart my Nuke in this case. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to restart my Nuke, and then we'll just do that real quick fix. All right, we're back in Nuke, and I have my overlay back. So we will go ahead and paint this, if I can pull this down, and start to paint that in. You know what? It might just be easier with a roto, actually. So let's try that. So I'll just roto this quickly, and then let's see. We can adjust before as well, so we can see maybe it would be easier if we expand this roto. So we could add some more shapes to this to just sort of get rid of the stuff around. And then we'll just key that. It's really only a few frames at the end that this problem is there, so it's not too big of a deal. So something like that. And that'll just help us bring it back. So once we stencil everything off and we start painting it or kind of rotoing it back in, it just kind of helps. So let's just compare. All right, that's good. Yep. And then we have down here where it restores the side of the head. So we see it's really straight there, but we already fixed that area. So later on, it kind of fixes it. So I'll just make sure that it goes all the way through. And then on this frame, I'll just mix it to 0. So I'll set this to 0 and set key, and then go to the next frame and set it to 1 so that it'll turn on those frames. So all those little lines up here, again, that's more stuff we can sort of clean up. Let's just go to our end here and see what it looks like. So yeah, I'll just try to get rid of the prominent areas first. So we can go here, basically just do the same thing we did up here. So if we look at our footage, let's just see. Yeah, we want to key this out before the garbage mat. So we'll go here, step down before the garbage mat. We'll do our key for that. So just expand this and bring it down. And make a key here and plug it in and invert, and then we can basically try to get that detail. So that's good. I'll key mix it, same process. So I'll time-lapse this now because this is sort of the same deal. I think it's pretty straightforward. If you need to scrub through slowly, you can probably pause the time-lapse or whatever. But this is the exact same technique that we've been doing. So in order to get to some new information or any confusion points, I'll start talking again there, but I don't think there's much of a point at this moment.